Mr. Gandhi and the Emancipation of the Untouchables by Babasaheb Ambedkar. Chapter 6. The Executive. The second political demand of the Untouchables is that they must not only be representative in the legislature, but they must also be represented in the executive. This demand is also opposed by the Hindus. The argument of the Hindus takes two forms. One is that the executive must represent the majority of the legislature, and secondly, the men in the executive must be competent to hold places in the executive. I propose to deal with the second argument first. It is an argument which is fundamentally sound, but it is equally necessary to realize that in a representative government, this argument cannot be carried too far. For, as Professor Dicey has argued, it has never been a primary object of constitutional arrangement to get together the best possible parliament in intellectual capacity. Indeed, it would be inconsistent with the idea of representative government to attempt to form a parliamentary far superior in intelligence to the mass of the nation. The stress upon competency is needless. Nobody has said that ignorant people should be made ministers simply because they are untouchables. Given the right to representation in the cabinet, the untouchables, there is no doubt, will elect the most competent people amongst them. There are a number of that in every province to fill those places. Again, why apply this limiting condition to the untouchables only? Like the untouchables, the Muslims are also claiming the right to be represented in the cabinet. Why have the Hindus not insisted upon such a limiting condition against the Muslims' claim? This shows that the objection of the Hindus is not based on reason. It is an excuse. Coming to the second argument, the Hindus are simply misusing the words majority and minority. They seem to forget that majority and minority are political categories. As political categories, there is no fixed majority or a fixed minority. Political majorities and political minorities are fluid bodies, and what is a majority today may become a minority tomorrow, and what is a minority today may become a majority tomorrow. The difference between the Hindus and the untouchables cannot be said to be a difference of this sort. There is no endosmosis between the untouchables and the Hindus as there is between the majority and the minority. There is another characteristic of a majority and a minority relationship which would make them inapplicable to the relationship which subsists between the Hindus and the untouchables. The majority and minority are divided by a difference only, difference in the point of views. They are not separated by a fundamental and deadly antagonism as the Hindus are from the untouchables. There is a third characteristic of majority and minority relationship which is not to be found in the relationship that subsists between the Hindus and the untouchables. A minority grows into a minority, and a majority, in becoming a majority, absorbs so much of the sentiment of the minority that the minority is satisfied with the result and does not feel the urge of fighting out the issue with the related. Now, all these considerations are quite foreign to the relationship between the Hindu majority and the untouchable minority. They are fixed as permanent communities. They are not merely different, but they are antagonistic. To speak of them as majority and minority would be as true and as useful as we would be to speak of the Germans being a majority and the French being a minority. The end.